Welcome to the Gospel Addict Podcast. I'm Greg Bryan.
And I'm Jim Reski.
We're gospel addicts because we believe the gospel of Jesus isn't just good news, it's the best news ever.
We're addicted to the gospel because it doesn't just start us out in the Christian life, it is the Christian life.
Join us as we look at the Bible through the lens of the gospel.
Thanks so much for listening.
Ready for a wild ride? We're diving deep into John, chapters 7 through 10. Talk about drama. We're unpacking why these chapters caused such a stir back then and why they still resonate today.
No kidding, these chapters are electric. We'll see how Jesus handles the pressure as his message attracts followers, but also makes him some powerful enemies.
And John doesn't waste any time, does he? He kicks things off with the Festival of Tabernacles. Picture it. Jerusalem buzzing, pilgrims everywhere. It's the festival of the year, one you wouldn't want to miss. But here's where it gets interesting, because even Jesus' own brothers are pushing him to go public in Judea, which is basically enemy territory.
That's what makes this so intriguing. John tells us Judea is a hotbed of hostility toward Jesus. Some people want him silenced permanently. So when his brothers say, "Go on, show yourself," it feels less like encouragement and more like a challenge, almost a dare. It's like they're saying, if you're who you say you are, prove it.
And Jesus picks up on that vibe, right? He says, "My time has not yet fully come," hinting at the danger. He eventually goes to Jerusalem, but secretly, like he's orchestrating his own grand entrance. And of course, word gets around like wildfire.
Oh, word definitely gets out. He starts teaching in the temple courts, captivating people with his authority and insight. He's throwing out these radical interpretations of Scripture, leaving even the scholars baffled. But these teachings come with a cost. People start questioning his background, like, where did this guy get this wisdom? Jesus is disrupting the status quo, and the authorities are starting to get nervous.
He's turning the tables on them, that's for sure. And he doesn't stop there, does he? He even claims his teachings are not even his own, that they come directly from God. That's a bold move. He's basically saying, don't just take my word for it. Test it against what you know to be true.
It makes you think about what it means to speak with authority, especially in a religious context.
Yeah.
He isn't just offering opinions, he's claiming a direct link to divine knowledge. It's no wonder some people are in awe, while others are ready to, well,
Pick up some stones.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the healing of the man on the Sabbath, right? We have a miracle no one can deny. But the act of healing on the Sabbath, that's where the controversy explodes.
And it all boils down to this.
Yeah.
For the Pharisees, upholding the letter of the law, particularly the Sabbath, was paramount. They saw Jesus' actions as a blatant violation, a challenge to their authority. But for Jesus, it was about embodying the spirit of the law, compassion and mercy. He was saying, is the Sabbath about rigid rules or about alleviating suffering?
Talk about a mic drop moment.
Right.
And just like that, the whispers start. John tells us public opinion is divided. Some see a prophet, maybe even the Messiah, while others are spreading rumors accusing him of deception. Talk about a PR nightmare. Is it just me, or is the too good to be true reaction like a tale as old as time?
It's fascinating how quickly narratives can form, especially when you have a figure as polarizing as Jesus. This is where we see the human tendency to resist what we don't understand or what challenges our deepest beliefs. It's like some people are ready to crown him king while others are plotting his downfall.
Talk about a no-win situation. It reminds me of today, how quickly social media can turn on someone. John throws us another curveball with the story of the woman caught in adultery. It's such a powerful, emotional moment.
The scribes and Pharisees, they're trying to back Jesus into a corner, using this woman as a pawn in their game. They're ready to stone her according to the law, but Jesus, well, he does what he does best.
Flips the script.
Exactly.
His response, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone," is forever etched in my mind. He doesn't condone adultery, but he forces everyone to confront their own hypocrisy before judging others. Talk about a powerful embodiment of compassion over condemnation.
And just when you think things can't get any more intense, John throws us into chapters 8 through 10, where Jesus starts making these bold I am statements. Like, he's not just teaching anymore. He's making these incredible claims about his identity. Like, when he stands up and declares, I am the light of the world, it's like, whoa.
It's such a powerful image, light of the world.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I kind of glossed over those I am statements. Help me out here. What's the big deal? Why are they so significant?
It's all about the context. See, in the Jewish tradition, using I am in this way is directly referencing the divine name, the name God revealed to Moses, the burning bush. I am, W-H-O-I-M. It's huge. So when Jesus uses this phrase, he's not just talking about being, a source of wisdom or guidance. He's claiming a direct link to the very essence of God.
Okay, wow, I never made that connection before.
Yeah.
It's no wonder people are accusing him of blasphemy, right? He's basically saying, I'm not just a prophet, I am God.
Exactly. It's a line in the sand.
Yeah.
And it forces everyone to make a choice. Are you going to accept his claim or reject it? And the stakes, they don't get much higher than this.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, Jesus starts talking about freedom from sin. But even that message, you'd think everyone would be on board with that, right? But it causes a stir, especially that line where he says, you belong to your father, the devil. That one always throws me for a loop.
That's where this whole idea of spiritual lineage comes in. Jesus is turning the traditional view of lineage on its head. It's not just about being physically descended from Abraham. It's about who or what you align yourself with. Who are you choosing to follow? And that choice, according to Jesus, that determines your true identity.
So it's less about your family tree and more about your, spiritual DNA.
Exactly. And for some people, that's a really tough pill to swallow, especially for the religious elite who believe that their lineage, that guaranteed their right standing with God. But Jesus is saying, nope, it's about something deeper, more fundamental.
He's like, you can't just coast on the legacy of your ancestors. You have to make a choice for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got these dramatic showdowns, these incredible claims, but then we get this other amazing healing story, the man born blind. This one always gets me.
It's such a beautiful story, full of layers. You've got this man blind his entire life, and Jesus heals him. But what's even more remarkable is how his spiritual sight is also restored. It's a gradual awakening, a process of coming to see not just with his physical eyes, but with the eyes of faith.
And that's the aha moment, isn't it? The Pharisees, who were supposed to be the spiritual leaders, they're so blinded by their own rigid interpretations of the law, they miss the miracle right in front of them.
It's a classic example of how dogma can obscure truth. They're so focused on what Jesus has done wrong, healing on the Sabbath, that they fail to see the beauty and power of the miracle itself. Their hearts are hardened. Their minds are closed.
They're literally blind to the truth Jesus is revealing. It's almost ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then John switches gears again with this metaphor of the Good Shepherd. And sometimes, I have to admit, when I read these passages, my eyes glaze over a bit. Sheep shepherds got it. But there's got to be more to it than that, right? Okay, sheep shepherds. What's the deeper meaning here? Help me out.
Think back to the Old Testament. The image of God as a shepherd, caring for his flock. It's deeply ingrained in Jewish thought. Think about Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Protection, guidance, intimacy, it's all there.
So when Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd, he's tapping into something powerful, something people would instantly connect with.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. He's also kind of subtly at first flipping the script, because a little later in John 10, he talks about other sheep that aren't of this fold. He's hinting at including the Gentiles.
Whoa. Okay, that would have been a radical concept for his audience back then. Jews were God's chosen people. That's how they saw it, right?
Right.
So he's not just talking about tending one flock. He's talking about bringing together a flock from every nation, breaking down barriers, bringing people together.
Yeah. It's a message that still resonates today, that universal message of love and belonging.
It really does. And as if all of that wasn't enough, he goes on to make, maybe the most controversial claim in all of John. I and the Father are one.
Wow. Yeah.
I can see why people freaked out. He's claiming to be God. Straight up. And, centuries later, it still makes people stop and think. But here's what gets me. Even with all the tension, even with people trying to stone him, John tells us some people believed, others not so much. Every step of the way, Jesus forces people to make a choice, to confront what they believe.
This is the power of his message, right? He doesn't shy away from controversy, doesn't try to please everybody. He speaks his truth, even when it's hard to hear, even when it challenges us.
It's like he's holding up a mirror, making us look at ourselves, our biases, our prejudices. It makes you think, are we reflecting his light in the world today? Are we building bridges? Or are we putting up walls?
That's the question, isn't it?
Are we choosing compassion? Or are we clinging to judgment?
These chapters in John, they aren't just ancient history. They're invitations to really examine our own beliefs, our own darkness, and to choose to walk in the light, understanding, compassion, and love,
Man, I always knew John was a wild ride. But this deep dive, it's given me a whole new perspective. Thanks for taking us there.
My pleasure. Always a good time to dig into Scripture.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Gospel Addict Podcast. Feel free to contact us via email at gospeladdictpodcast gmail.com.
Stay tuned for our next episode, and remember, on your worst days, you're never beyond the reach of God's grace, and on your best days, you're never beyond the need of God's grace.
See you next time.